Welcome to lesson 2 in my favorite module, play. It is going to be so much fun. Hopefully you come away with some strategies and things you can try out today or tomorrow or whenever you get a chance with your children. But let's dive right in to the burning question that I get a lot from parents is my kid only wants to be on the iPad. That's all they want to do is watch YouTube or watch a TV show on repeat or the same movie clip over and over. What do I do? There's a couple things you can do. Technology isn't going anywhere. It is part of our lives. It's how you are watching me right now. And we just need to be really responsible with how we're using it. Because if we can insert ourselves into the play when we're using technology, that's even better. So we can put on guided access. We can have it, there's limits to the technology. We can play a game. A lot of times there's a game your child wants to play. You can play it with them. So as long as you're using technology in a way that's fostering communication and fostering interaction, that's okay because it's not going anywhere. And if that's what your child loves, then try to do those things. That being said, I know technology is sometimes needed to be a babysitter. A couple years ago, I only let my kids watch YouTube when I needed to clean the bathroom or make dinner because I knew they would be safe and in one place and distracted and entertained, that I wouldn't need to worry in that moment. So I understand that sometimes technology is a necessity for you to make it through the day. And no judgment. I have been there. I get it. But then if they're on technology when you're not with them, maybe you could do some play so they're off the screen for a little bit and interact with them. However, if they're intrinsically motivated by it, after you finish cooking dinner or after you clean the bathroom, then take a shower, whatever you need to do, then go sit with them and try to join in with them in whatever they're doing. We are going to start small. So pick an activity that your child enjoys that doesn't drive you crazy. This one's important because for me, I got to a point where when I was playing Barbies with my daughter, I hated it. It made me cringe because we did it all the time and I just couldn't take it. So even though I said join their interests, I kind of backed away off Barbies and let her do that one a little more independently and pick something else to kind of interact with and be super fun with because it just wasn't enjoyable for me. And children can feel, like we talked about in the first module, your energy. So if you're completely faking it, they know. They know. Or if you're checking your phone, you're like, okay, yeah, good job. They know that and they sense that. So pick an activity that you think you could enjoy a little bit too, and then observe them playing. We are not going to go in and turn off their Netflix on them. We are going to observe them playing and try to copy their play. We can label or provide sound effects for what they're doing. Big, silly noises kids love. So if they build with blocks or have a car and it crashes and you're, oh no, that's a great way to kind of get them to look up from their toy. Be like, oh, you're here. What are we doing today? And really realize that you're there to engage and you want to connect with what they're doing and not completely take over their play. That being said, I also talked about a little sabotage before. You can sometimes sabotage their play. If they're playing with cars, you can kind of keep some of the cars to yourself. So they have to ask you or look at you or reach for you. And you say, oh, you want a car? And that to get them modeling more language. We do want to keep doing that. But I wouldn't say sabotage everything. I wouldn't say do it right at first because then they're going to get frustrated real quickly. So you want to start small, start slow, and look for ways that you can genuinely have fun that's not stressful for you, not stressful for them. You are going to stop talking and asking so many questions or playing too high. It's very important that you think about what level your child is at that we talked about in the first lesson and play at that level or kind of one higher. If I have a student who is blowing bubbles and I take the bubbles and I put the top on it and I'm restricting it, you can't have any more until you say more bubbles, please. and then I go and I blow a million bubbles when that child just wanted one, they're going to walk away because that's not what they wanted to do with the bubble. They wanted one bubble to catch on the wand and walk around with and watch it bounce. So that is a way that you can take something as simple as bubbles and make it overcomplicated. So stop asking too many questions and stop jumping to where you would go. Think about where they want to go and what they're doing. We do want to emphasize the words. We want to model. If you are using visuals or your child has a communication device, you want that right there. So, oh, you want the car to go? Go. Vroom. Oh, it crashed. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, no. We're emphasizing words. We're being silly. Something can crash into you and you can knock over. Kids love those big dramatic movements. They think it's hysterical when people do that. And it's surprising. So I have students sometimes, if I'll pretend to fall asleep, and if they touch me or do anything, I'll be like, whoa. And they think that's silly, or it kind of scares them and they like it. So they'll kind of close my eyes again or go like this for me to go back to sleep if they don't have the language yet. So emphasize words, movements, slow down. As I said, I am so guilty of this because I'm a go, go, go. And let the child take the lead. If you are leading the play, you're going to lose them at some point, most likely, unless they're older and have really high skills. But for our smaller kids or our kids that are a little lower on the stages that we talked about, we really want to follow their lead. Do what they do and try to get more engagement before we ask for anything in return. All right, so now the big one. I am going to give you a bunch of ideas, so you might need to watch this or write it down because like I said, I think of things all the time, and to me, this is normal. But when I talk to other people, they're like, no, I don't think like that. I don't play like that. I don't want to do that because it's boring to me. Well, we're about to make it fun, and I promise you, you can. Just take a deep breath, let your silly side come out. But let's start with their favorite toys. So I've given a lot of examples with blocks or cars. We can stack up the blocks and knock them over. That's a big one to get kids engaged. Also, have them go as high. A lot of kids really like the visual aspect of blocks, or if you go long. Dominoes are a great one if you have a kid that is patient enough. A lot of times I get about 4 dominoes in and the kid knocks it over on me. But that's a great way if your child really likes visual patterns. Blocks, magnetiles, dominoes are all really good things. A lot of kids really love the alphabet. So you can get foam letters and stick them on the side of the bathtub. You can get magnets to go on the fridge. You can line them up or mix them all up. Sort them by color, by size, by shape. All these things are available to you if you watch your child, because I guarantee they're probably doing something similar if they are a younger child. I work primarily with younger kids, even though I do have a couple older kids that I've seen throughout the years. Water play is a huge one. Some kids love the water. They would live in a pool or a bathtub if you let them. We have buckets that we fill up at school, and a lot of it is just taking a cup, pouring it in, pouring it out, or getting it in, dumping it out. And kids will go crazy for that. It is a great way to get more. Or stop. Stop is a really big one. We want to be teaching kids to be able to request and protest, because if I can't tell you I don't like something, I'm probably going to have a behavior. So we also want to be modeling when we're playing. If a kid seems uninterested or doesn't like what we're doing, if they go to scratch us or get frustrated, we want to say, uh-oh, stop. I'm going to stop and walk away, because we need to model that language too if they don't like something. So this play is a great way to do it, because it's not a serious, if I'm going to drink from the cup and they want me to dump it out, which I wouldn't probably drink if we're playing in it, but they might have to say like, stop, or I'd be like, bleh. Something like that, something big, something silly. If you have any water toys, like the little boats and stuff, great way to get in, go and stop. You can bring bubbles into the bathtub. I know a lot of parents don't really like bubbles unless it's outside, and I completely agree. But we can do big bubbles. We can blow fast. We can blow slow. We can do the small bubbles. We can pop, 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 pop. Fun fact, if you put on a winter glove, you will be able to almost juggle bubbles. So that's a really cool trick kids love. That doesn't necessarily have to be in the bathtub, but we do that one a lot in the classroom that I work in because bubbles are just really fun. They're really, now they have bubble machines and everything. So you can go crazy with on, off, run through them, just watch them. Pop, 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 which P is a great sound to work with if your kid isn't speaking with yet because it's a bilabial sound and it's really easy to see. All right, keep going. Reading books. So this doesn't have to be what you think of. Bedtime, we sit down, I read to you, and then you go to sleep. Reading books could be something as looking at the pictures. We don't always have to read all the words, though some kids do like that. But we could look at the picture. We could label the action. I had a student who loved Thomas. So I got some of those Thomas Look and Find books to really work on vocabulary. And because he loved Thomas so much, his language just exploded with me. And he would point to things, or we'd try to play I Spy and find things in the book, even if it's just a simple book. Like one of the board books that kids have when they're younger, and they have different textures. Those are great ways to incorporate different senses into the book. The scratch and sniff books, I used to love those when I was a kid. So books don't necessarily have to be, oh, you have to sit on my lap, we're going to read. It can be something completely different. Use the pictures, use play, close the book, open the book. I mean, there's a book called Don't Push the Button that a lot of my kids love because it's silly and it says don't do it, and they do it, and then, oh my gosh, we can have a big reaction. And a lot of times if I go like, oh, like that, for some reason, my kids think it's the funniest thing in the world. So we'll read books that have silly stuff in them, just not necessarily for the words and the storyline, but for me to get that reaction or for them to do it. A lot of times, once you get a child hooked on something, they'll want to do it over and over again. So be prepared for that. A playground. Playground is a great way to get lots of movement for those sensory kiddos that really need it. But we have go, we have stop on the swings or the slide. I love to take kids who really like that swinging motion, and I'll pull them up, 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 down, or go. And it's a great way for them to get their sensory needs met, but also have fun and model language. Or if you stand in front of a swing and pretend that they kick you and you go like this and kind of fall over, they'll be saying more before you know it, probably, because it's that silliness. It is that simple, gross motor stuff that is really impactful because it's hitting so many centers of their brain and not just sitting down being like, hey, can I tell you a joke today? No, that's too high. Our kids are not ready for jokes. So being really silly at a playground. A playground is a great time if you have a slide and they do like cars, or magnet tiles might stick to the slide depending on what playground you're at. But that's a good way to take something else and roll the blocks down the slide, watch them spin. Uh-oh, they fell over. Or you can try to kick off your shoes. I used to love that as a kid, and kids think it's hysterical, and it's really a good gross motor activity for physical therapy too. But watch it fly up, 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 crash, and it falls to the ground. I think we already talked about bubbles a little bit. So those are lots of ideas just to kind of get you thinking of just maybe, okay, blocks. I'm done building up, 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 Maggie. Like, what do you got for me? All right, let's knock them over. Let's build a castle. Let's build a tower. And there are so many resources out there. If you Google how to play with blocks, I guarantee you'll find like 50 Pinterest things of parents who play all day with their toddlers, or are really just blogging about it or putting YouTube videos out there on it. Which brings us to our next slide, which is some of the older things. So, YouTube, you love it, you hate it, not going anywhere. So, we're going to just embrace it. So, YouTube is a great way of, if your child is watching the same video over and over and over again, you can put on guided access so they have to come to you and you're inserting yourself into their play. You're making them need you. And it's a little bit of sabotage, which, like I said before, we want to be careful about sabotage, but we also can use it to our advantage. With YouTube, I have kids that can watch YouTube with like 20 screens open. To me, it is overstimulating. I don't know what they're looking at. I don't know why, but they love it. And so if I sit down next to them and try to find something that they like about it, or some way that I can do it, whether YouTube's on or not, that's huge. I worked with a student who loved the 20th Century Fox theme song. So that bump, 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 dun, dun. So he would always watch it a million slides, or so I would sit with him, and when they did it, I noticed he would drum. So I started to drum. And then at one point he started taking my hand and he'd want to drum on my arm. And it was his way of getting me into his play. I still, for the life of me, cannot figure out how you can watch 20 screens of 20th Century Fox all going at different times and think it sounds good, but he loved it. Loved it. So I'm not going to try to change that. I don't even know how to, except when that guided access went off, we did that sound with drums. We'd find things that we could hit and do it. Or he was a big seeker too. So he'd want me to pick him up and we'd go like bump, 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 and spin. So it was taking the YouTube, what he loved, what he was watching, and then playing with it with other things. It doesn't have to be necessarily drums. I work in a school, so we had a music room, so it was really easy for me to get a set of them. But you don't need to. Get pots and pans, get cups. He obviously loved the sound. That beat was really meaningful to him, so he loved to hear it on different things. He loved to feel it in his body. And he started saying 20th Century Fox, and he had very limited verbal communication at the time, but it was so important to him. You would think help or eat would be one of the first things he said. Nope, 20th Century Fox. Wasn't clear, but we all knew the intonation he was using because it was so important to him. So by taking that one YouTube clip, or about 50 YouTube clips that we would watch, and letting him watch it, joining his play for about 2 minutes with guided access, and then saying, uh-oh, then I would make my sabotage by putting in the wrong password. And I would go, oh, I did it wrong. And he thought this was hysterical. He would jump on me, and then I'd say, uh-oh, we'll do bump bumps here. And I would bounce him on my legs to the beat until eventually we didn't need to use it. Now, sometimes in the beginning, he'd want to go right back to it. So we did that a lot during our session, where it would be 2 minutes of 20th Century Fox, a couple minutes of sabotage, and then he would still want it. He'd go right back to that iPad and need it. I honored that it was important to him. We would do it for another 2 minutes, and then I tried to get him away from it and engage still with something else. I always bring my toys or bring something, but we started building the logo with Play-Doh because he really loved that. He loved seeing it. So I would bring yellow Play-Doh, and then we'd make it in blue Play-Doh, and then we'd try to move it. So this is just an example of how something that you might think is so inconsequential to you can really be molded into other things that this kid really enjoys. So if they have a favorite video, a favorite clip that you're getting sick of, try to move them away from it in a way that you still show them that it's important to you. You understand that it's important to them. I had another student who would script. So he was a Gestalt language processor, and he would script from movies. And I would spend the first couple minutes of every session just listening and trying to figure out what he was kind of saying, what he was playing in his head. And if I could figure it out, which I got pretty good at being a detective on him, and I would pull up that clip. One of them was from the movie The Croods, and it was when Grug, the main guy, was trying to be like Guy, the cool guy, and he rolled on a ball and then would smash into a tree. And so once I showed the clip, I saw the part that he laughed at, and he had a big reaction to it. We went right into that sensory room, and we got one of the big balls, and we started acting it out, and he loved it. So I used the YouTube, the movie, the video clip that he was really interested in, and got him engaged with me, to the point where then we'd do the little scene. I try to act like the big, strong guy, and it really got him engaged with me. Now, this was a student who had a device, so I would bring it. I programmed Croods on his device under interest, or I think it was called fun on his. And so when I came back the next day, I said, "Oh, do you want to play Croods?" And I used it on his device. And I think the next day he actually wasn't interested in, but a couple days later, I asked, "Oh, did you like Croods?" And he said Croods and pointed to the sensory room. And he remembered it. So he didn't need the movie again. Like the first kid needed that still really intense need for the visual and the auditory from YouTube. I was able to move this kid away into a activity that didn't involve the screen anymore, which is not going to work for every kid. Obviously, I'm giving you examples that worked. There are some times when I am trying to figure it out and I just can't. So then I have to go into my bag of tricks and hopefully come up with something else to kind of get somebody away from a computer, or something that they might be really interested in. Or some days I'll just sit and watch it with them and try to model language, slow it down, see what they're seeing, and think of it for the next time. It's okay to sometimes just be. I do think that's okay, because this is hard. It's not, I think it should be easy, but sometimes we're sweating. We're really working to try to get these kids to engage and play with us. Computer games and video games. I have worked with several teens or older students who love video games, just love them, whether it is, I don't even know, Call of Duty, or video games where they are really active and there's so many things coming at you. I can't get my fine motor skills to do all the things that they do. But one student I worked with, every Friday night, him and his dad played Grand Theft Auto. Is that the best game? Maybe not. But this kid loved it, and he thought it was so funny that you could pull somebody out of the car. You might not have really been digesting that they're stealing the car, hopefully, but it was something that him and his dad did that was such a great connection. Now, they didn't do it every night, because that would have probably made the dad frustrated. It would have been too much. They made it special and at a time that would work, and they both look forward to it. And it was something that the kid loved doing, and the dad was able to, he probably liked video games and whatever, let's go for it. But it wasn't something that needed to happen all the time. Otherwise, it might have been too much on the dad and too much pressure on the son, that he might have started getting really frustrated at the video game if he didn't beat a level. I don't even know how to play that game, but if he didn't get far enough. So it's just enough that they found the sweet spot, the spot where it's mutual enjoyment, it's happiness, but it's not overwhelming. Some days, I promise you, I come home absolutely exhausted, and it is hard to find time when my own children ask me to play, because I've worked so hard playing all day, which seems silly to say, but it is. It's work sometimes. So start small. Maybe set a time that's really going to be your time to play if you don't have it in you to do. And God only knows everybody has 1,000 things going on in their life. So to sit down and really be mindful about it is important. Another thing you can do is watch a show. If there is a certain show, everybody's loving Bluey right now at my school. And if there is a show, you can tape them, or you probably can watch them on YouTube. I don't even know. My kids are a little older now, so I'm not into the whole Bluey. I remember Paw Patrol, but wasn't as big into Bluey. But that can be a time where you sit down, and Bluey is silly. Bluey has the dad playing, they play Keepy Uppy. It is kind of a silly show that if you watch Bluey and they're playing Keepy Uppy with the balloon, then bring out a balloon and say, let's play Keepy Uppy with Bluey. And I'm not going to bet money because I'm not a betting person, but I really think your child would be much more interested in if you're doing what's on the TV when the TV's doing it too. Versus another day, if you bring on a balloon, they might just want to pop it or might want to just feel it, because a lot of kids love balloons. But if you can watch a TV show and learn what they're seeing and what they're doing and then try to mimic that, that's so powerful. That is a great way to connect. Another thing you can do is cooking. Some kids really like food. They like the recipe. It's very strict. You follow it. It's like a routine for them. And they get something delicious to eat at the end of it. Not all kids. I've only had a few that I really think really liked cooking. But as kids got older, it was a good way to incorporate them into something. Dad's got to cook anyway. Somebody's got to cook. So if you're in the kitchen, it's a good way to bring them to you. Only if they're intrinsically motivated. My kids still do not want to cook with me. Every now and then we'll get a brownie or something. But if it's something that they really like, or maybe they like eating the batter, maybe they like stirring it, maybe there's some part of it that you can say, time to stir, and they come over and they get that motor movement and you're cooking together. It's enjoying you. If you're okay with it, you can take the flour and make it snow. That one's a little messy though. But there's a lot of things you can do in everyday routines to make it fun. Sports. As kids get older, a lot of kids really like sports. Even if they don't like to play them, they might like to watch them. Or even if they don't necessarily watch it, they love the statistics about it. And some kids are so smart with knowing, and they'll watch YouTube videos of all the stats and be able to remember them so much, where I'm like, who did what? And I like sports, but I can't remember that stuff. I don't even remember who played in the Super Bowl last year. All I know is my team didn't. So it's really important that if that is something that they really like, maybe you can sit down and watch sports together, or maybe you can talk stats. You yourself can look it up on YouTube and see, okay, what did my kid watch? I'll watch the same video and then I'll know what they know, and we can try to talk about it and connect about it. So that's another way that you might be able to kind of connect. And there are a lot of examples here that I've given you. I'm sure there are millions of more out there that I can't even think of, or that you're thinking of now, that are genius because they work for you and your child. So try to pick a time, start small. Just like everything, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by all this information I'm giving you, because it really is supposed to empower you into being like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. If there is a time when you guys are in the car and you're singing, you can turn the radio up, you can turn the radio down, you can turn it off, you can change the channel. There are so many things you can do in your everyday routines to try to build in that communication, that connection, and that shared enjoyment. Now, that won't work for everybody. So that's why I'm also creating the Facebook group that I told you about, because I'm hoping, if I didn't give you any examples today, and I really hope everybody can use at least one, that you can message me and we can come up with something that would work for your child. The last thing I'm going to talk about in this module to finish off is playing with peers. So everybody wants their kid to have friends and play, but the play might look different. So if we have a bunch of sensory seekers put together, which a lot of times in my classroom, a lot of them need that sensory, they might be playing a little rough. Sometimes when I've had kids in the preschool setting that I worked in, if they went into the OT gym, it might get a little rough, where I would be like, no, we can't push. No, we can't push. But the push, since they don't have the language, is the way of saying you're it. And it's like this sort of tag game that I'm not really understanding. So it's hard. But if you see your child interacting with a peer in a way that you think is different or odd, or play it out, let it play out. Kids figure out kids, and we don't give them enough credit for that. So obviously, we want everyone to be safe, no dangerous play. We don't want any, extreme kicking or hurting of somebody. But when you're watching your kid start interacting with peers, don't jump to conclusions. Kids will make up games that we just shouldn't be a part of. It's between the kid and the kid. So um, you want to try to get your kid involved if they're able. So a long time ago, I had a mom who enrolled her kid in karate because she thought it would be really good discipline for him. And it was difficult at first, but she found a really great sensei, and the kids in the class genuinely loved him. He couldn't do everything that the kids could do. He had a really hard time following directions. His teacher went with him for a lot of the sessions to kind of teach the sensei and teach everybody about some of the needs that this student had. But he became friends with all of those kids in the class himself. He didn't need his mom there telling him what to do. The kids kind of took him under their wing, and they wanted to stand next to him. They wanted to be his helper for the day. They wanted to spar with him, or whatever they called it. And it's really genuine. We don't give kids enough credit for how accepting they are, and how they don't have these biases that we all come with now that we're grown and we've lived here too long. They are innocent, they're genuine. And so if your child has an interest or is a seeker, this new Ninja Warrior thing is amazing. I have some kids that are so strong and can balance on a ball. God, I wish I had those abs. They can just maneuver and move in a way that I never could. So explaining to their parents, hey, ninja might be a really great thing for them because they can swing and they can bounce. And then guess what? They do it with other kids, and they learn to wait in line, and they get these genuine connections because the kids see them doing ninja and they're like, he's just like me. He just might not talk right now. And that's okay. So think about it. If there's something that you think you could get your child involved with in your area, it's different for wherever you are as far as what kind of activities there are. But if they're really good at something or have a big interest, reach out to that group and say, hey, do you think you could help me? I can kind of educate you on what my child needs, but I'd really love to see them. Is it always going to work? No, it's not. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's something that you could try. And educating people. You want to educate. If there's a lot of times kids have no filter. And so I've had kids come up to me and they're like, why doesn't he talk? Oh, he doesn't talk because his brain has it. His brain is different than yours and mine. So he uses this computer, and that's okay. I've done lots of presentations in all the places I have worked to teach other children about different neurotypes and about neurodiversity, because I think the more accepting we can get the next generation to be, the better legislation we're going to have, the better supports we're going to have, everything. It's going to be like a ripple effect. So if there's some kids in the neighborhood, you can reach out to the moms and say, hey, I'm looking to get so-and-so a little more involved. Do you think your kids would want to come over? We have this really cool swing in the basement. And even if your child is just the onlooker in the beginning and kind of watches the other kids play, eventually he might be able to engage with them in a way that he feels safe and comfortable doing. Don't necessarily pressure it, because then you might make them retreat and feel like it's not a safe place. So that was probably our longest module yet. Thank you for hanging in there. And if you have any questions, find me in the Facebook group. You can always send me a message through this portal. But I really hope you are walking away or turning this off with at least a few ideas on ways that you can connect through play. See you in the next module.